What's going on, gardeners? It's Tuesday, April 19th, and it is a gorgeous spring day here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. And today I had to drop everything I was doing to film this video because something crazy happened to the bare root fruit trees that I just planted, and I need to share that information with you right now. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated. Barely 2 weeks ago, I uploaded a video on my channel that I filmed on April 3rd, and in that video I was showcasing for you 3 bare root trees that I had just purchased that had just arrived in the mail, and they were 2 apple trees and 1 self-fertile peach tree. And when I was showing you what's the best way to buy your fruit trees and why you should go bare root for most deciduous fruit trees from reputable companies, those fruit trees were still wrapped up in their packaging, unplanted, and they had not yet begun budding out or leafing out. Of course not. They arrived as bare root sticks, which generally look like they're dead trees. Of course they aren't, but that's how they appear. After reading through all the comments on that video, a lot of people had some concerns about buying bare root fruit trees. And the concern was, because you're buying a bare root tree and it's dormant and hasn't yet leafed out or budded out, it can sometimes take a long time for those trees to wake up. Therefore, they'll take a while to establish and really get going, and they will set you back versus buying a fruit tree that was already leafed out and blooming and actively growing. And that is a real concern people have when they buy bare root fruit trees, because while you can save a lot of money going bare root and you can get a very wide selection ordering the fruit trees online, who wants to buy a fruit tree that's going to set them back? Nobody wants to wait for fruit. They want to get fruit to harvest as soon as possible. So in an effort to fight back against that concern, a few days later I also uploaded a video entitled 5 Reasons Why Your Fruit Trees Aren't Growing, and I'll make sure to link to that video above. And in that video I went through 5 different reasons why your fruit trees may be struggling and not growing very quickly and barely budging. And I also filmed that as a refresher course for myself, because I knew that I had to go and plant those bare root fruit trees that I just received, and I wanted to make sure for my own benefit that I followed the best cultural practices possible in order to give them the best head start so they would wake up from dormancy and establish as quickly as possible, because hey, I want fast fruiting fruit trees too. So barely 2 weeks ago, I went ahead and I planted those bare root fruit trees in ground. And that's the reason why I'm making this video. They've only been in ground for barely 2 weeks. They went in as basically dormant, dead looking sticks, and I can't believe what I'm seeing already. This tree right here is my little tiny sundowner apple tree that I just put in the ground barely 2 weeks ago, and it is already alive. Look at it. It is full of brand new leaves. None of these were here when I planted it 2 weeks ago. It's leafing out all throughout the trunk of the tree, and it's developing a canopy already. I can't believe that in 2 weeks this went from a dead looking dormant stick to a fully alive tree. It looked like I bought an actively growing tree from Home Depot or something and I plopped it in the ground already growing, but I didn't. This is a bare root fruit tree. Even crazier than the sundowner tree is this wine crisp tree that I just planted. Now granted, this is a larger caliper tree. It's a larger grade than the wine crisp tree that I bought due to availability, but this thing is not only leafing out, it is flowering. It is covered in blooms, and I just can't believe that, because again, 2 weeks ago this was a dormant, dead looking stick, and here it is fully alive, covered in leaves and blooming. Now some of you may be asking, wow, your apple tree is blooming already. That's incredible. Are you going to get fruit off of it? And unfortunately the answer is no, and that is because these apple trees require cross-pollination, and my other fruit tree that I just showed you, the apple tree that's sundowner, that is not flowering yet because it is a smaller grade tree. So there are no flowers to cross-pollinate with this variety, so I will not get fruit off of this tree. However, I never anticipated to get fruit off of this tree. So it's no big loss to me, and now that I see how well and how quickly they are establishing already, I'm really confident that they'll both probably flower next year, and there's a really good chance that I will get some fruit off of each tree on only the second season, and that is just incredible. And quite possibly the tree that I am most impressed with is this PF19 peach tree. This is the self-fertile peach that I showed you in my video 2 weeks ago, and this baby is already leafed out. I don't have any flowers on it yet, nor do I expect any flowers on it because I just planted this thing and it's just a little tree. But I'm just so impressed by how quickly it woke up, how quickly it is leafing out, and it's developing a canopy already. I mean, you just can't imagine that a bare root tree could wake up so quickly, but that is what happens when you have all of the right cultural practices. You give them enough sun, you give them enough water, you give them everything they need in order to help wake them up, and they will wake up immediately for you when all of the conditions are right. And the last tree that I want to show you is my bare root Asian pear tree that I planted as an example tree on how to plant bare root fruit trees, a video that I will link to above. I uploaded that video about 3 weeks ago, and this tree is already alive. It woke up a while ago, as you can see by the leaves coming out. And it actually had a whole lot more leaves, but I had to skin them all off. And the reason why I peeled them all off is because I grafted 2 other varieties onto this tree because I want to have a 3-in-1 Asian pear tree, so it's self-fertile and I have more varieties on one tree. And that is a video that I'm working on. I have to wait for the grafts to take in order for me to complete that video. So as long as I have successful grafts, we have that video to look forward to in the future, and I'm really excited about that. And as a little added bonus, I had to show you my non-astringent Asian persimmon that I planted as a bare root tree last year. This hasn't even been in ground for a full year, and I noticed something this morning, and I am just so excited I can hardly contain myself. It is covered in blooms. Those are all persimmon flowers that are turning into fruit. They are everywhere, and I am so excited by this. I'm so absolutely thrilled that a tree this young is going to fruit for me. Now, I can't let these all turn into fruit because that would not be good for the tree to have it bearing so heavily as a young tree like this, so we will have to thin the fruit, but it is pretty awesome that a tree this young, shipped bare root, barely a year in ground, is covered in fruit, and I'll get a handful of fruit off of it this year. Now you may be thinking, why are you making yet another video on these bare root fruit trees? You just made several videos on them. Well, it's because one thing I take really seriously on this channel is the follow-up. I give a lot of gardening advice and I post a lot of how-tos and DIY style tutorials. So how are you supposed to know if the advice that I'm giving is actually any good if I don't follow up? There were a lot of concerns out there as to whether you should go ahead and buy a bare root fruit tree and will it set you back because you're getting a tree that's dormant instead of one that's actively growing. Well, I want to telegraph to you that these things that I posted in this video, they work. Get them from reputable sources, plant them using great cultural practices, and they can sometimes wake up and surpass an actively growing tree that's been stifled and choked off in a container. Those actively growing trees often cost more money, they're heavier, they're bulkier, they're tougher to plant, and sometimes they don't grow as well as the dormant trees because the dormant trees arrive from you in a state of no stress, whereas the actively growing trees could be pretty stressed growing at some commercial nursery or being shipped through the mail. So I just wanted to take this time and do a little follow-up on the fruit trees that I just planted and hopefully prove a few concepts to you on all of the recent fruit tree videos that I have been posting. That way, hopefully you see the results of these cultural practices, and hopefully it will put a few fears aside. And I have to say, even I'm impressed by how quickly these trees woke up. These are some beautiful trees from a great company. If you're curious where I bought them from, they're from Cummins Nursery in New York. So I highly recommend their apples and peach trees. As you can see from these results, it's pretty amazing. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my garden, I have them all linked in my Amazon storefront link down in the video description. And while you're there, check out my Spreadshop link for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Somebody's dreaming. I wonder what he's dreaming about. What do dogs dream about? Do they dream about fetch? Or a whole field full of tennis balls? I don't know, but whatever he's doing, I hope it's fun.